Hi everyone, welcome to OC Aviary. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at how the birds are progressing in condition towards the breeding season. It's a few weeks away before we pair up the birds, which will begin about the start of April. So we're going to have a look at three species in particular, which is the Hawfinch, the Bullfinch and the Norwich canaries. We're going to have a look at the condition, we're going to see how they're getting on, and we're going to see how I'm supplementing that and trying to do the best I can to increase their condition and get them closer to the top form that they need to be in for breeding. We've also made a few changes, so just basically sorting things out with the bird rooms and the flights, and you'll see that soon. And then finally, I'd just like to say before we get into this video, a huge thank you for getting 7,000 subscribers. I'm aiming for 10,000 by the end of this year, so please make it happen. Make sure you subscribe so you can follow along with the rest of this and get me to 10k by the end of the year. So let's begin with the Hawfinches. The Hawfinches are getting on well. We've had them about 3 to 4 weeks now, and I know a lot of people are intrigued to find out how they're getting on. Have they settled in all right, and how are we conditioning them? Well, I've still got a load of mealworms left from what I bought at Stafford. We obviously have, we bought live ones, so what I've done is I've prepared some, I've froze them, so I've literally put them into sort of a baking tray, put it in the freezer, and then they've all froze up nicely. And what that's done is it's made it so they're almost like rice, and you can shake it and they sound like that, and then they're all loose, so I can pour as many out as I need. But we do have a few live ones left, which I'm currently feeding the Hawfinches. Not only those, but we've got the waxworms. Now the waxworms were starting to turn into whatever they turn into. I believe it's chrysalis after. So what I've done is I've froze the waxworms as well. I'm taking a few out every other day, defrosting them or boiling them up with some boiling water and putting them in for the Hawfinches as well. And we are starting to see that their beaks are now changing colour. The hen is further progressed than the cockbird, so she's got a more blue beak than is the cock, but he is catching up because he was behind. So fingers crossed, all going well. The Hawfinches are doing well, and we'll get some we'll get some footage of them breeding hopefully within the next few weeks, and I do expect it'll be sort of April time before, or late April, May time before we get any nests or any eggs or chicks. For the Bullfinches, we're going to look at a pair in particular, and this is a pair of native Bullfinches. I've paired them up now. They've been paired about 2 weeks. The idea of this is that they form pairs in flocks in the wild over the winter months. So come the breeding season, they are sort of paired up, and they are essentially pairing for life. So what I've done is I've kept them paired up. I paired them up a few weeks ago. So we have a hen, which I brought in October, and we have a cockbird actually bred by Matt Eld of the Canary Room. He's a lovely bird. So we've got a buff cockbird and we've got a yellow hen bird, but obviously both natives, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we get on. I am giving them a few of the dried rowan berries. They do like fruit, and I will be offering them raspberries as well, because raspberries do help bring them into condition. In the wild, Bullfinches would eat raspberries and just bring them on an awful lot in condition, and that is something we spoke about in the Natives in Norwich Zoom Room episode we did with John O'Malley last summer. So something to look at there. If you can get raspberries, if you can get fresh raspberries, brilliant, but even cordial, raspberry cordial in to dilute into their water should be fine, and it'll work just as good. Hopefully you saw on my previous video to this one, we brought back another Norwich canary. We've got a Norwich canary cock. It's a buff cockbird. It's a 3 parts dark, so it's a green bird with a slight bit of variegation on it. Anyway, we've brought that bird back, and he is going to be pairing not 1 but 2 hens. The idea is that we can float him across 2. We've got a cinnamon hen. Now the cinnamon hen was kindly given to me by Brian Rayfield about a month or 6 weeks ago. And what we do have is a clear yellow Norwich hen, and that's a flighted hen. You may remember that we brought in some Norwich previously, which we put with a Goldfinch cock we had some mules from. Well, I've decided that although we had it with a crossbill cock, which is, I've decided now we aren't going to be trying that mule pair. They simply weren't getting on and were squabbling, and it just wasn't working. That we're going to use that hen with the buff cock. So they're getting on well, and it's going to be good when we bring them into condition fully for the breeding season. So what I've done is I've separated them out. So we've got the cock in a 4-foot breeder and the hen in the 4-foot breeder. But for this pair, and the hen especially, They're both in 4-foot breeders. We've got a perch either end, so there's about a 3-foot gap between the perches. We've got fresh water on for them, conditioning seed, normal seed, and we're giving them a little bit of germinated seed, egg food, and I'm also going to be trying some pearl morbide with them again. We didn't use it last year, but I'm going to be trying it again this year. Stay tuned, we'll have a look at that in a different video. So that is how the Norwich are getting on. The cockbird's warbling, which is a great sign. The hen's getting on nicely. So fingers crossed we might be able to breed a couple of Norwich this year, which will be a first for me. So when you're trying to condition your birds and breed your birds, what you can't expect is dirty cages to breed good birds, and what you can't expect is the birds to be in top health if they've got dirty cages. So of course we're always cleaning the cages. We're going through, we're clearing out easy bed or newspaper or whatever you put on the bottom, and we're replacing it. We're trying to do that probably every week, if not at the most, you know, you might go every few days. Depends on how much room you've got in the cage and how many birds is in there. Well, I'm obviously going through and regularly doing that, and I'm replacing it as newspaper now for the moment. But the plan for over the next few weeks, as we run up to the breeding season, is do a series of deep cleans. I know that this is something that's probably a familiar term to you. So basically what we're going to be doing is spraying down all the cages with some mite spray. So I've got this Clean and Clear check mite. It is brilliant stuff, and I'm spraying that into all the nooks and crannies, every single corner, ridge, anything like that where mite could be hiding. So you can see with the plastic cages, they are pretty much spotless, and we've cleaned them all down with that, drying it all and making it all so it's nice, and it means that no mite can then live in there. Now do make sure you check things like gaps between cages like this, because it's very simple and very easy for mite to go straight underneath there and get away from the mite stuff. So make sure you do clean under that as well, where your cages might join together if you do have separate blocks like I do. Of course, checking all sort of corners here as well. So we've gone through, cleaned all those down and staying on top of it, and we've done it in the other bird room as well. And again, we're going to keep doing this now, and over the next, let's say, 4 weeks, we're going to really step up and make sure we're going round so there's nothing that could be bothering the birds like the mite. Of course, we're always going to be making sure, but especially in the run up to the breeding season, we don't want something as simple as mite or uncleanliness throwing the birds off. So that's something that you don't want to suffer from. Now, we are going to do a video, it'll be in the next video following this, on the mite bombs. So the mite smoke bombs, there's 2 different sort of brands, they do the same thing, and you can light them in your bird room. Smoke goes up and it goes within all the nooks, crannies and everything there, and also you can leave your birds in the bird room and the birds are going to be just fine, and then it also makes the place smell nice afterwards. So we're going to do that in a different video, but that's just trying to keep on top of mite and anything that could be bothering the birds. And of course, when you're cleaning the cages, you're trying to eliminate disease, so if you can use disinfectant as well, clean it all down, even better. So you need to make sure that you're prepared for the breeding season. You've got all the supplies that you need, at least so you can kick it off, and you can always bring in those extra supplies later. For the natives, you've got to make sure that your nest sites are presented correctly, you're using the correct liners, you're using the correct sort of cover for them, and that the birds are going to be comfortable with that nest site you've provided them with, and that you're going to get the best results you can this breeding season. So I've been using I've been building my nest sites over the past week for the native birds. I'm going to show you 2 examples and see. So this is the first nest site, if you want to take a look there. So we've got 3 different perches, we've got a cocoa liner, canary nest pan in the bottom to hold the liner, and the cover like this. And this is a big nest site. So perhaps you might have guessed it, this is a Hawfinch nest. The Hawfinches we haven't yet bred. Obviously, we only got them a few weeks ago. It's my first time having them, and I've gone on what my best knowledge is what a Hawfinch nest is like in the wild. I've used Google, obviously, had a look at nest sites which Hawfinches breed, a natural nest of Hawfinch, and they're generally built in the fork of a tree, and they build their nests out of twigs. It's kind of similar to a blackbird nest, and what I found then is when we look at how they're bred in captivity. They're usually bred with these cocoa liners, and it's similar to how a bullfinch makes a nest. So I've gone with this style nest site. So this is an open top nest site. We've got 3 different perches here. The idea of this is that having them at different heights means that the cockbird can feed the hen on the nest. The hen can drop down into the nest to where her eggs are, so she feels a bit more safe and less stressed out, and she can get out of the elements if there's any wind or any problems like that. But also the idea of having these perches higher than the nest site is that when the chicks are in the bottom, obviously when they're young it's not going to be a problem, but when they're older and they're, well, hopefully the pair rear their own young, is that the chicks are going to be sort of stood up on the feet, stretching the necks for them. And you need to make sure that the parents are going to be taller than them so that they can feed down into their mouths. Otherwise, you're going to have limited success and the youngsters aren't going to be fed as much as you'd ideally like them to. So that's why we've got these 2 different perch heights here. And obviously, we've got one here just for when the birds come in. And then for the cover on this fake Christmas tree, obviously lasts forever. Just make sure you clean it down and it's all good to go for the next year. So I've kept that, screwed it on here, trapped it down at the sides, and it's good to go. We've got the cover at the side so the hen is a bit more less stressed and more secluded and feels more safe and secure, and it's just a bit more cover for her as well and the chicks. It makes them feel more comfortable. So there you are, that is the Hawfinch nest site. Hopefully you can get a few ideas from that, and just by the way, the cocoa liners from Direct Bird Products, so if you are looking for one of those, do check them out, links in the description. So next up is the Greenfinch nest site. A little bit more of a messier nest site, but Greenfinches like it, they get on well with it, so I'm not going to change it. Well, what I found last year is when we bred Greenfinches is that we needed the cover over the top. They felt so much safer and did better with that cover over the top. We had 2 pairs with a nest style like this, but rather than the cover like here, it was around the edges, and they didn't breed as well. They didn't feel as safe. The hens would leave the nest. It wasn't a success. But the pair which I did have a nest like this, they did well. They reared me 15 youngsters. So I can't complain there. That's as good as you're ever going to get. Well, this is my idea for a nest site. So we're having 5 pairs of greenies this year. So I've got a wicker nest site. It's lined with cocoa. I've screwed that down into the base of this. And then we've got apple branches on the front again, emphasising that different heights in the perches, so that the birds can feed in and feed down onto the chicks. So it means that they aren't having to stretch, and it means the chicks are getting fed enough. And then we've got again Christmas tree, fake Christmas tree over the top. It's going to help make the hen feel more secure. I've sort of covered it more from this side, less from this side, so the hen can see around as she needs to, and hopefully it does stop the cockbird from bothering her as much as possible. So that's the Greenfinch nest site, and hopefully this will work well for me this year, fingers crossed. So if you've got any ideas, any questions from this, do drop us a message if there's anything you need to know. And there's your 2 main nest sites. You can also use something like this for bullfinches. I will use similar for the bullfinches. I've got a different idea for those guys. Goldfinches, I imagine, very similar, but you might need a bit more cover for goldies. Siskins will be fine in that, red poles will be fine in it, but it is a larger nest liner, so it's more suited to the large species, Greenfinch, crossbill, Siberian bullfinch. So bar the red poles, we're going to breed all of the native birds outside in flights. So I've recently unwrapped the flights, so you may recall that in sort of November time we wrapped all the flights in plastic to keep the colder temperatures out and to keep frost out, and also to stop any wind problems. Obviously they do get cold in there, but the idea is just to take that edge off the birds so they aren't battered by the cold, and ultimately we don't lose as many as we probably would. So you've got to take into account with the wild birds, so many of them die each year because of the cold. If I can try and reduce that in captivity, that's a win. So we've unwrapped the flights, and also it wasn't just for the cold, it was the avian flu. The situation now is that there seems to be less cases coming up, but more than anything, my flights are all covered with a plastic sheeting over the top. Nothing can drop down into the flights is the point. So I'm not really worried about avian flu in that sense, because there can't be that contamination unless a bird is literally coming on the front of the mesh and another bird comes to it. So it's not really something I'm concerned about through that. Well, we've unwrapped all the flights now to get the birds a bit more used to that weather, so they're going to be getting a bit of a draft in there. They get the colder temperatures are pretty much gone. It is dropping a little bit cold at night, but nothing compared to what it has been doing, you know, negative temperatures. So it's all right, and the birds are getting on well, and that fresh air is obviously really good for them as well. So we're going to leave them like that for a few weeks now, get them a bit more hardied up, even though they've been through all the winter, and then come breeding season, they should be just fine to go out into the flights and get breeding immediately. So this past weekend gone was the Eastern Fed show. Now, I was invited to this show. Sadly, I just couldn't make it. And it was in Bury St Edmunds, and I just want to thank everybody who did invite me to the show, and I'm sorry that I couldn't make it, but it looked to be a good show. Obviously, with it being a bit later in the year, the birds were going to look different than when you had them in sort of the whole show season. So most of the birds not carrying much weight, if any at all. They're going to be in condition almost for breeding season. So it would have been different, and I know that they had a good entry of native birds, softbills and Norwich canaries. So just like to say thank you, and I'll try and make it to the show next year. And please do, guys, support your local shows and all of these other shows as well. Keep them running, keep them going well, and we'll hopefully see many of them back sort of this autumn. I know many didn't do any shows this year because of COVID restrictions and all sorts of problems. So anyway, guys, if you have enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, please do subscribe down below so you don't miss any more. Remember, we've just hit 7k subscribers. Let's try and get 10k before the end of the year. Please smash a like on this video if you have enjoyed it. Hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.